Welcome, I'm Trish Connor-Cato. This is the SharePoint 2019 Site Owner video course. This course is for site owners and/or managers new to working within a SharePoint environment. Introductory level experience with SharePoint is recommended. We'll be drilling down into site columns and content types. Both of these allow you the flexibility of reusing content throughout a site or even any child sites. Content types can be linked to lists and libraries. They're a combination of site columns, document templates, and workflows. We will address managing site permissions. Specifically, we will cover SharePoint groups, how to assign permissions, permission levels, and permission inheritance and disinheritance. If you're enjoying these videos, please like and subscribe. If you have any questions you want answered by one of our instructors, please join our off-site community. The link is in the description as well. As always, if this course has exercise files, you'll find them in the video description below. The third module in this course addresses site columns and content types. Both site columns and content types are features you can use to customize SharePoint with reusable content. The content can be reused throughout a site collection, or even the whole farm. In this module, we're going to have several lessons, beginning with exploring the site column gallery, creating a custom site column, and adding a site column to a list. We'll get into content types by exploring the site content types gallery, creating and using content types. There is a Word file in the video description called Closing Sales Letter that we'll be using during this module. So what is a site column and what are content types? We know they both give us the ability to reuse content over multiple SharePoint sites, but let's drill down and see what the difference is between them. So a site column is a reusable column definition or template that you can assign to multiple lists across multiple SharePoint sites. Also, remember that lists and libraries are used interchangeably here. One of the most basic elements that can be added to a SharePoint project, site columns not only ensure consistency of metadata across sites and lists, but also reduces rework. So imagine you have multiple document libraries and they all need a particular column, the same column, if you will. You can check to see if there's already an existing site column that you can use, and in that way you don't have to create the column at the document or library or list level. Then content types. That kind of pulls together an item and information about the item. The item might be many different types of a file, document, Excel workbook, even a status indicator for a progress report. It could also be a list or a folder. A content type associates this item with key metadata or other information, such as a template or a retention policy. You can even add site columns to content types. You can access the site column gallery from the parent site or a child site. Remember, our SharePoint video course team site is a child site. We used our root site, in my case, Trish Training site, as the parent site. So to get started, what we're going to do is we're going to go to the settings gear in the upper right-hand corner. And we're going to click on site information. And then we're going to go to View All Site Settings. You'll find both site columns and site content types under the heading Web Designer Galleries. Right now, we're interested in site columns. So go ahead and give that a click. So now what happens is this. You're seeing all of the site columns, and we'll go through them and talk about them a little bit. But first, I want you to look over to the right side of the screen and you'll notice that there is a source column, and this column actually points back to your parent site. Because the way it works is this: all of the site columns on the parent site, the Trish training site in my case, will flow down to all of the sites that are created using that as a parent site. So we created our SharePoint video course site as a subsite of our parent site. But if we were to go back to our parent site and create more subsites, we perhaps want them all to have accessibility to all of the site columns from the parent site. So if we create our own site columns from this subsite, they will only be available to this subsite and any of its subsites. It won't trickle back up to our parent site. So for that reason, let's go and look at all of these in our parent site. You can click the link for any of those that have the link to your parent site to navigate to it. Earlier, we created a column and added it to a list in our SharePoint video course site. And it was to the goals list, and it was a column that said whether the goal was met or not. Yes, no type of column. If we had wanted to use that column over multiple sites, multiple lists, multiple libraries, we could have set it up as a site column. These are all the site columns that come with a site in SharePoint. So they're coming from our parent site. You can notice there's a whole bunch of different groups, base columns, content feedback. If you want to look at groups individually, you can go over to the right and do the drop down next to all groups. Let's take a look at some core document columns. So these would be columns that would be useful in a document library or document repository of some sort. So before you add columns in your list and libraries, check to see if there's already an existing site column that you could use. And feel free to take a moment and pause the video to look at other groups, and you'll get to see other types of columns. There's even a custom columns group. I have a few items in there already, but we're going to actually end up creating a couple of custom columns so that we can use them on any of our subsites. Now we're going to get ready to create two custom site columns. We're going to use one while we're in this portion of the module, as well as a built-in site column, and then we'll use the other custom site column when we get to the creating content types part of this module. So you have a create button right here above your site columns, whatever group you're showing, and we can go ahead and click create new site column. We're going to give this column a name of finalized, and we could put a question mark after it. We want to use the date and time information type for this column. And so when we scroll down now, we can group this column. We're going to leave it on the custom columns group if that was an existing group for you, or you can do the existing group drop down and select custom columns. I like to keep all the custom stuff I do in the custom columns group. We don't need to give it a description at this point. And we want to look at the date and time format. We'll just have date only. And we'll have a default value of today's date. And when we get to the bottom, we're going to just click OK. So it'll take us back to our site columns. We can go to the custom groups, so your show group drop down, custom columns group, and you should see your finalized column there. Now, if you click on it from here, you can click on the link. You can get back in to make any changes if necessary. I'm going to just scroll down to the bottom and cancel myself out of there. I'm going to go ahead and click Create Again so we can create another site column. And this one is the one that we're going to use a little bit when we get out of this section here. We're going to use this one. We're going to call it Sale Closed. And we want it to be a yes/no information type. And we're going to leave it in the custom columns group. When you scroll down underneath description, change the default value to no so the checkbox will be unchecked. And then when you get to the bottom, go ahead and click OK. Now we're going to navigate via the quick launch to our SharePoint video course subsite. Once we're back on our SharePoint video course team site, we want to go to the goals list that we created earlier in the course. And this is where we're going to add a custom site column and a built-in site column. So what we're going to do, we could do this a couple of different ways, but let's go up to our gear and we want to go to List Settings. Once you're on the settings page, you're going to want to scroll down until you're underneath the columns section. So in the columns section, you'll see all of the columns that are already in the list, and you'll see some columns that are not showing in the list. Underneath all of that, you'll see where you can create a column from here. You can add from existing site columns from here. So we're going to click on the link to add from existing site columns. And so it takes us into the screen, add columns from site columns. And the first column that we are going to add is a built-in site column. It's showing all groups. They're in alphabetical order, numeric in an alphabetical order, or symbol rather, percent in an alpha order. And I'm going to scroll almost to the bottom of the list, and there's a built-in site column named Status. When I see it in the list, I'm going to click on it, and then I'm going to click the Add button in the middle. It is a core document column. It belongs to that group. We want to add it to the default view for this particular list. And at the bottom, we're going to just go ahead and click OK. Now, I've scrolled back down to underneath columns on the site settings screen, and I'm going to go back to add from existing site columns. And by the way, you can see status now in your list of columns. So I'm going to go back to add from existing site columns link. And we're going to go get the one that we created. So the custom site column. Where it says all groups, we can do the drop down and select custom columns. And we'll see our finalized question mark column. And we're going to add it. And we're going to click OK. We can use the breadcrumb at the top to get back into our goals list. You may need to scroll to the right to see both of the columns that we added, the site columns, status and finalized. If you want to fill in some information, you can go ahead and edit in grid view. And notice when you come in here, you're not going to see your site columns. So what you're going to do is exit grid view. And what you need to do is you need to click on year by year. So I'm going to select the link for 2019. And it's going to open this screen. And here on this screen, I can select an option for the status. I'm going to say it was reviewed. And for finalize, I'm going to leave it empty because it's not finalized yet. And that's what I need to do is just fill it out on that panel because you can't use the grid view for your custom columns. And I'm going to click away from it, and now you'll see that the status shows up. So if you're interested in doing more, you can click on 2020, 2021, 2022. For 2020, the status I'm going to choose is going to be final. And then for finalized, you notice how it defaults to today's date whenever that is. And I'll just leave it at the default. You can go ahead and do what you'd like for 2021 and 2022. Because status is a built-in site column and finalized is a custom one that we created at the parent site level, we can use those columns throughout any of our sites, lists, and libraries. Now that we've explored site columns and learned that they're reusable across different sites and that you can customize them and make your own, we're going to move on to the second half of this module, which explores site content types. Site content, again, is like packages of information. So in our example, we're going to combine a document template and some columns into a package of site content. So I'm on the home page of our SharePoint video course, team site. And we're going to start by exploring the built-in site content types gallery. So that means we're going to access our gear in the upper right-hand corner. And we want to go to site information. And then we want to go to view all site settings. Once we get in there, we'll see under Web Designer Galleries, we can access site content types. It's somewhat easier to take all of these in if we group them by category. So I'm going to go to the category header, and I'm going to say group by category, or select group by category. So there's a bunch of different content types that come automatically with your site, and we're looking at them now. So we have community content types, custom ones, digital assets, so on and so forth. As you scroll down the list, you'll see document content types. Now you can use these if you'd like, or you could use them as a basis for creating your own content type, which is what we're going to do. So before we start creating our content type, let's go back to our home page of our SharePoint video course site. Once we're on the home page, let's use Quick Launch to go to our built-in documents library. And when you're in the document library, go ahead and click the New button. So right now, in your document library, when you do new, you can do a new folder, a new link, right? You can edit the new menu, add a template, so on and so forth. But if you click on document there, you'll notice the Excel icon. It's going to give you a new blank Excel workbook. So once you create your own content type, the ease of use and the efficiency about it is that it will show up on the new drop-down in whatever library you'd like to see it in. So that gives you the ability to use the same content type across different libraries and lists. So at this point, we're ready to start creating our own. We're going to navigate back to home on the Quick Launch. We're going to use our gear to get into settings. We're going to go back to site information, view all site settings, and then we're going to go back in to the site contents type gallery. So right under this information banner, you'll see the plus create content type button, We're going to go ahead and click that. So the name is required, description is optional. We're going to name ours Closing Sales. So my hypothetical situation here is we have a Word document that our salespeople are meant to send out to the customer, and it's before the contract or the invoice for the sale is created and the sale has been closed. So we're going to use a Word document, as I mentioned earlier, that's in your files that come with the video description, called Closing Sales Letter for this. And we're also going to create some columns, and we're going to create a new document library that we can access this content type from. So our description can be something generic at this point, like last letter to send before invoice is generated. Something like that. So because the content types are categorized, we can use an existing category or create a new one. I like to keep the ones that I create in the custom content types gallery, so I'm going to use that category. Now this is where you can use the built-in ones to base your content type on. So for our parent category here, we're going to go to the document content type because it is going to be a Word document ultimately. And then underneath that, it has a content type drop down, and we'll also select document from there. Now at the bottom, you're going to go ahead and click create. The next step for us here is to upload the Word document that we're going to be using for this content type. So you'll notice you have an edit button, you have advanced settings, and you have delete. We're going to go into advanced settings, and now it says the document template for this content type. You can use an existing template or upload a new document template. I have some other sites, and I've been in here before, so I have a template that's there, but I'm going to choose upload a new document template and then use the upload button and navigate to the directory where you pulled the file to from the video description. So I'm going to just double click that Closing Sales Letter Word document, and notice now it notes it in that advanced settings box. So choose whether the content type is modifiable. So, every salesperson that's going to be accessing this document library, they need to be able to edit the document. So I'm going to leave that there. And if I want to update all site and list content types inheriting from this content type with the settings on this page, I can use that. So if I make other sites or other list content types, they'll use the same settings here. So they'll use, the edit setting and the same document. At the bottom, you're going to go ahead and click Save. So earlier, we created 2 custom site columns, one of which we named Sale Closed, and we made it a yes/no information type. Well, we want this site, that particular site column, to be part of this package. So this content type. So if you notice on this screen, if you scroll down, you can add site columns to be part of this content type. So we're going to go ahead and click on Add Site Column, and we're going to add from existing site columns since we created it earlier. When we created it earlier, we put it in the custom category. So I'm going to do my all categories drop down and go to custom columns. And then we'll see Sale Closed in there. You can click on it. I have it duplicated here for some reason, but that's okay. I'm going to just click on it. And then I'm going to do the Add button in the middle. And at the bottom, I'm going to click Save. So now this package, known as a content type, it contains a document that can be edited and a site column. So we have our site column, we have our document, we're done with the creation of this. And you may just want to scroll down and verify that that sale closed column has been added. And once you do that, you can use the content type gallery breadcrumb to get out of this screen. And then we can use the breadcrumb at the top to return to our SharePoint video course page. Now that our content type is created, we're going to create a new document library and apply the content type to it. So I'm going to just go over to the left to my site contents, get in there. I'm going to use my new button and choose document library. Now we'll just name it closing sales and create. Now, once we create our library, we want to create a folder for our salespeople. We'll just create one folder for the salesperson named Johnson. And when we get to the next module and you learn about permissions, you'll learn that only Johnson will be able to see his folder when they access this library. So all of the salespeople will be able to access this library, but only Johnson will be able to see the Johnson folder. So I'm going to just go to the new drop-down and choose folder and name it Johnson. So now that we've got that done, we're going to have to enable the use of content types on this library. Libraries do not come automatically with that feature enabled. So in order to do that, we're going to go up to our gear and we're going to go into library settings. You want to get into advanced settings under the general category. And the first choice is allow management of content types. We have to switch that to yes. And then you can scroll to the bottom and go ahead and click OK at the bottom. We can use the closing sales breadcrumb to get back into the document library. Now that we've enabled content types, we're going to go to the Add Column drop-down. And now underneath More, you will see Content Type, and you're going to select it. So you'll get a drop down. Like I say, I have a few things on my list, but you're looking for closing sales is the one that we created. And once you select it, you're going to go ahead and click Apply at the bottom. It'll let you know that it added one content type to this particular document library. Let's go ahead and go into Johnson's folder. And now when we go to our new drop-down, you'll see that closing sales Word document on the list. We included that in the content type, and since we enabled it for this library, it now shows on the new drop-down. And we can select it. So this is just a generic document with some placeholder text. But we're going to go up and save this document. It opens in Word Online, and we'll just call it Closing Sale 1, something like that, and click out of that box. And then you can go back to your document library. Now, the last thing we have to do is to get our column to show. So you're going to go back to Add Column. And all the way at the bottom, Show Hide Columns. And on that list of columns, you'll find your Sale Close column. You can check it so it will display. Now the thing is, my Sale Close column was way at the bottom, so I paused a little bit and I just moved it up in the list so I wouldn't have to scroll down. So once I put a check mark at the top, I'm going to click Apply. And there you have that saved. So that is a package of information. So a site column is reusable content throughout your sites. Then depending on which level of your site, if you create a site column at the sub-site level, it's only available to that sub-site and any sites that are child sites to that site. So you may want to develop your site content and your site columns from your parent site. So they trickle down to all the sites that you're going to be having to use in your collection. Our last and final module, Module 4, is all about managing SharePoint site permissions. So when you create a site like we did, or a list on the site or a library on the site, it gets its permissions by default from the root site. So the other thing is, when we started, the first thing we did was create a team site. And we created that as a child site to our parent site. So in my case, my parent site was the Trish training site. The SharePoint video course site inherited the permissions. That was a choice when we were choosing the template that we wanted to use, the team site template, and then we inherited the permissions that were assigned to the parent site. I mentioned at that time that you can turn off permission inheritance at a site, list, library, or even at an item level of a list or library. Permissions can be assigned to individuals, SharePoint groups, or other groups such as Office 365 groups. The lessons we're going to cover in this module will start by reviewing SharePoint groups. Then we'll assign permissions. You'll learn about permission levels and permission inheritance. Before we get into it, and you'll see this when we get into permission levels, but there are several different permission levels that I have on the screen at this moment. And by the way, if I haven't mentioned this before, this slide deck is included in the video description as well for your future reference. So you'll learn about these different permission levels as we go throughout this module. The first thing we're going to want to do is stop inheriting permissions from our parent site. So to get to that area, we're going to use our gear in the upper right-hand corner to go to Settings, and we're going to go to Site Permissions. And all the way at the bottom, you'll see a link that says Advanced Permissions Settings, and we want to click that link. So the first thing I'd like to point out is in this yellow banner, the second line, it says this website inherits permission from its parent, and it's listing in parentheses the parent site, in my case, my Trish training site. And because this video course site is a subsite of that site. I could use that link if I wanted to navigate to the Trish training site from this screen, but we don't need to do that. By default, because it's inheriting permissions, it created the same groups that are on the parent site. So they flow down to this site. So there's a members, owners, and visitors group, and each of those groups has its default permission level, and we'll do a deeper dive into permission levels in just a few moments. The first thing we want to do is stop inheriting the permissions from the parent site so that we can create our own unique permissions for this site and any of this site's subsites. So if you look up, you have a permissions tab that's already available on the ribbon, and the second button is Stop Inheriting Permissions. Go ahead and click that. You will automatically get a pop-up that lets you know that you're about to create unique permissions, and that after you do that, changes made to the parent website permissions will no longer affect this website. So we're going to go ahead and click OK on that message. Once we stop inheriting, it gives us the ability to create new groups for our sites or use the existing groups. We're going to create new groups for our site. So these are SharePoint groups. So for the visitors, I'm going to do the option button for create a new group. And notice that it's going to give the group the name of our site plus the word visitors. I'm going to do the same with the members group, create a new group, and it will automatically name it. And for the owners. So now we have our groups set up for this site, and at the bottom of the screen, you're going to go ahead and click OK. So after those groups were saved, it dumped me back on the home page, and I'm going to use the gear to navigate back to the permissions area. So gear and then site permissions, and we're going to go back into advanced permission settings. So now when you get back in here, you'll see your new groups, SharePoint video course members, owners, and visitors. They have the same permission levels as the original groups. And it's letting you know in the yellow banner that this website now has unique permissions because we disinherited the permissions from the parent site. So let's take a look at the permission levels and see what we can do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to check the box in front of the SharePoint video course members group, and using that permissions ribbon, I'm going to go to edit user permissions. So it gives you a little bit of a description about the permission level. So this group, members group, defaults to edit permissions, which means that the users can add, edit, and delete lists, can view, add, update, and delete list items and documents. Now, you may not want people to be able to edit and delete lists that you create. So instead of giving our member group edit permissions, we're going to give them contribute permissions and uncheck edit. Because there are checkboxes in here, you can have multiples per group. So contribute will let them view, add, update, and delete list items and documents, right? So we'll leave it for our purposes just to show you how to change it. You might want to leave it on edit, right? But this is just meant to show you how you can change your permission level for a group. Now, the other permission levels, full control, that's like me in my case, you in your case, right? We can do anything with a site. The design permission level usually is given for people that are going to be doing some kind of approval. So you might have managers that have to approve things within SharePoint, and only designers can approve it. So there's a document library setting that any new content needs to be approved. I think I mentioned it very briefly in Module 1. And that means if somebody uploads a document, the person that uploads it, the site owner, and anybody that has the design permission will be able to see that item. It's in a draft form until it's approved. Once it's approved, then everybody else that has access to that particular library or list can then see it. So anyone that's doing approvals would have to have design permissions. We talked about edit and contribute. You have read, where people can view pages and list items and download documents. And in restricted view, they can view pages, list items, and documents. Documents can be viewed in the browser but cannot be downloaded. So just because we can, and it's a demonstration, we'll go ahead and change the permission level for the members group to contribute. And at the bottom, go ahead and click OK. Once you've edited your permission levels, you're pretty much ready to assign users to various groups. Now, you can create other groups if you need them. I mean, it by default gives you members, owners, and visitors, but there's nothing that will prevent you from creating other groups. Like you might just want to have a group for approvers and then call it designers or approvers or something like that. But what we're going to do is we're going to check mark the SharePoint video course members, and we're going to add at least one person to the group. So go ahead and click on grant permissions, and then you can type in an email, an Office 365 group, some other types of groups. And I'm going to just type in a colleague's name here. And then at the bottom, you will see a show options link. And you can click that. It defaults to sending an email invitation. And just in case you had checkmarked the wrong group, right, you can see the permission level here and see the other groups that you have available to choose from. So it gives you another out. And then you just click the share button at the bottom. Once you do that, you can actually click on the link that's the name of the group, and it will take you to another screen that shows you all the members of that group. That's one way of seeing the members of a group. You can do your back button on your browser to get back to the previous screen. And another way to see the members of your group is you can check mark the group name again, and then you can go back up to grant permissions, which is where we assign permission. And you'll notice, and when we came in here the first time, I didn't point it out, it said shared with lots of people, even though we hadn't shared it yet. On the left side, you can click on shared with, and you can see the person that you invited to the group as well as the other groups that are included in this group. So anyone that's a Trish Training site owner, Trish Training site members, all of those people from the parent site at this point would have access to this. But there's nobody in those groups, so it doesn't make a difference. So I'm going to just close out of there. So just to kind of recap what we did here is we disinherited from the parent site, set up our own 3 groups, reviewed permission levels, changed the permission level from the members group to contribute instead of edit, and we granted permission to the group. So now we're going to move on to our next part of this module. The groups we created and the permissions that we granted are for every list and library on this site and any of its subsites at this point. But you can change permissions at the list or library level as well. And we're going to do that now. So we have our quick launch on the left. Let's navigate to our documents library. And that's the built-in library that came with the team site. And so on this particular library, we want to limit access to only certain people, let's say. So in order to be able to see this particular library, now imagine that we have more documents in this library, but we don't want everybody on our team to be able to access this library. So we can disinherit permissions at the library level and then create unique ones. So it's just a slightly different procedure, but really the same thing. You just have to go somewhere differently to do it. In this instance, we want to go to library settings instead of site settings. So when we go to the gear this time, because we're in the library, it'll have library settings on the list, and that's where we want to go. Under permissions and management, we're going to select the link for permissions for this document library. And from here, the process would be the same. We would want to stop inheriting permissions, right, from its parent, and it shows you SharePoint video course is the parent. And so we're just going to use the ribbon, the same process we went through at the site level, but now we're doing it at the library level from library settings. If this was a list, we would have done the same thing from list settings. So we're going to go up and click on Stop Inheriting Permissions. And you can go ahead and click OK on the pop-up. This time when you stop inheriting at the library level, it doesn't give you the ability to create new groups like it did from the site level. So the moral to this story is create all the groups that you think you're going to need, map them out on paper first for your entire site, and then create them at the site level, and then they would flow down to this page. So right now, this library has unique permissions, but we can't create new groups from here. We would have had to do that at the site level, and then they would show here, just like our SharePoint video course members. We could have other groups as necessary. Notice there's no create group up here on the ribbon. Same process, except you want to create all of your groups before you start assigning unique permissions to libraries, lists, or items. So what we can do is we can just go back to our documents library on the left-hand side. Once we're back in the documents library, let's go ahead and use the upload button, and we'll upload one other file to this library. It'll make for a better explanation. So I'm going to upload files, and I'm going to just grab the employee salaries Excel file there and upload that one. So let's say that we have 10 people that have access to this document library, but only 2 people that have access to this document library are able to access the employee salaries document. We can give permissions at the item level in SharePoint as well. So we started with site level, which those permissions flow down to all the subsites. You can disinherit, create other groups if you want to. And then you can do it at the list or library level, which we just did. And now we're going to do it at the item level. So to manage permissions at the item level, we're going to hover over the employee salaries document, and we're going to go to the show actions ellipsis. And once that menu opens, you're going to click on manage access. So a few things, the panel opens up. You can stop sharing totally. So whatever group it's shared with, it's no longer going to happen, right? There are no links. It'll let you know if there's any links that have been created for sharing. And it tells you all of the groups that have direct access to this. All the way at the bottom, you want to go down to Advanced. There's a link in the bottom left that you want to click for Advanced. And it takes you right back to the permission screen. It looks the same, except the yellow banner is saying this document inherits permissions from its parent. Its parent, in this case, is the documents library itself, which is inheriting its permissions from the site. So what we can do here is we want to stop inheriting the permissions, just like we did before. And as usual, you're going to get the pop-up, and you can do OK on your pop-up. And now your banner updates to let you know that the document has unique permissions. So typically for something like this, you would have created another group, named whatever you needed to name it, whatever permission levels you needed to give it, and then that would be on this list, and you could assign that group to this document. So only those 2 people in that group, in my example, would be able to even see that file in the documents library. So now your challenge for this module is to make your way back to the site, the SharePoint video course site, permissions, and create another group, name it whatever you like, so that you can attach it to that document in the documents library. So only one person will have access to that document, something like that. Just to get familiar with the screens, remember you can only create new groups at the site level, not at the library or item level. So in conclusion, we moved into site columns and content types. Both of these are efficiency features that allow you to reuse content across sites. So it lends itself to standardization as well as efficiency. And last but not least, we covered SharePoint permissions and learned that they can be assigned at the site, library list, or item level. Thank you for viewing this course.